সুপ্রিয় দর্শক মণ্ডলী, আসসালামু আলাইকুম। বিজ্ঞাপন বিরতির পর আবার ফিরে এলাম আপনাদের সামনে আপনাদের প্রিয় আইন বিষয়ক আলোচনা এবং পরামর্শমূলক অনুষ্ঠান লিগ্যাল অ্যাডভাইস বাই এম সেলিম নিয়ে। আমি সলিসিটর মোহাম্মদ সেলিম, ডিরেক্টর অফ উইলডেন লিগ্যাল সলিসিটর। আজকে আছি আপনাদের সাথে এবং সবসময় থাকি এবং থাকবো ইনশাআল্লাহ। আজকে আমার সাথে আমি প্রথম থেকে বলে আসলাম যে আমার একটা ডিস্টিংগুইশ গেস্ট জয়েন করবেন আজকে, ব্যারিস্টার পল টার্নার, হেড অফ ইম্পেরিয়াম চেম্বার্স। উনি জয়েন করছেন আজকে আমার সাথে। আমরা টোয়েক নিয়ে এবং টায়ার 2 ভিসা কার্টেল, স্পন্সর লাইসেন্স চলে গেলে যে কার্টেল হয়েছিল সেই সমস্ত ব্যাপার নিয়ে কিছু কেস লো এসছে। কেস লোয়ের নাম হচ্ছে পাঠান, সেটা নিয়ে আমরা ডিসকাস করব। আমি তাকে বিভিন্ন কোয়েশ্চেন করব। এই পুরো সেগমেন্টটা আমরা সেটা করব। এই সেগমেন্টে কারো যদি এই ধরনের টোয়েক রিলেভেন্ট কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে, অথবা যদি ওই টায়ার 2 এর কারণে তার ভিসা কার্টেল হয়েছিল সেরকম যদি থাকে, তাহলে ভিসা কার্টেল না, তার অ্যাপ্লিকেশন রিফিউজ হয়েছিল, আই এম সরি, নট ভিসা কার্টেল, অ্যাপ্লিকেশন রিফিউজ হয়েছিল টায়ার 2 এর লাইসেন্স যাওয়ার কারণে, তারা চাইলে এখানে কল করতে পারেন। মিস্টার টার্নার এই প্রশ্নের উত্তর দেবেন। তো আমি এখন সরাসরি ইন্ট্রোডিউস করছি মিস্টার টার্নার। আই এম নাও ইন্ট্রোডিউসিং ব্যারিস্টার পল টার্নার, who has agreed to join us today. Good afternoon, Mr. Turner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Salim. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, sir, this afternoon?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. It is our pleasure that we are having you today, and we are grateful that you have agreed to give us time, to me and of course to our community as well. The whole community is watching you now. So as you are aware that today we have chosen a couple of topics to discuss with you. First of all, I know that you have been fully involved with one of the very important cases which is now listed for a presidential panel hearing at Upper Tribunal on 1st and 2nd of March. And of course you have been involved with this case since quite a long while now. It has CMRH before, case management remote hearing. So I would like to discuss this matter with you first. This is a very significant case, we know, for the TOEIC victims. So I would like to hear from you that what's the background of this case and how it has been going on.
Well, Mr. Salim, I mean, as a lot of your viewers will be aware, in 2014 Panorama produced a program which showed that there was cheating at one school, and then rather than conduct any proper inquiry, what the Home Office did was they then cancelled I think nearly 60,000 visas. Because ETS invalidated or said all the tests were questionable. Now they did that without actually checking to see whether people had or could speak English. They were supposed to offer them the opportunity of doing another English test or proving it, but the Home Office at the time just issued notices telling people they could go home and appeal from abroad. And obviously that's ridiculous, because if you leave the country, how are you going to prove on paper that you could actually speak English? And so that led to one of the big cases in it, which was Arsan, and it said that that really an out-of-country right of appeal to prove whether or not you cheated wasn't a good enough remedy. So yes. The Home Office then issued new letters where they then again relied upon the material from ETS. And what's suspicious about it from my point of view is that the Home Office said that ETS is the biggest English language tester in the world, based in New York, but the company that they actually did the deal with was based in Holland, and so it was they shielded themselves from any liability, which I'll come to. So ETS cancelled all the tests, and the Home Office then tried to throw everybody out of the country. A lot of people said, well, hold on a minute, ETS, their evidence, the way they collected it or gathered it, it's not very good, and it needs to be subject to scrutiny. And so the first case that really came up was with SM Kadir.
Yeah.
Now, there were two. Now, in that case, whoever alleges fraud has got to prove fraud. Now, normally that's very easy. The Home Office will say, this bank statement is fraudulent, and the individual will either get evidence to show that it's not, or will have to accept the consequences. In SM and Kadir, the court were not impressed with the evidence from ETS. They were really very not impressed with it at all. And there were experts that gave evidence. The hearing took 3 days. Yeah. And then what the tribunal did was they said, well, there's just enough evidence from ETS to show that cheating might have taken place, but it then goes over to the individual to prove that they didn't cheat, which is unusual because it's usually that the Home Office has to prove everything. And then there were a number of other cases, and probably I would say the most important was MA.
Yeah.
And in that, they accepted that there was no chain of evidence or chain of custody between the actual test that was taken and ETS. So there was no way of connecting the person to the test result that was then sent back to the Home Office. And in that case, the court found pretty much heavily against ETS. But
Right.
where the case fell apart was it was a combined hearing. So whilst they criticised ETS heavily, they then went on to find that the individual in MA couldn't give a good explanation, couldn't explain themselves, and therefore the Home Office won. And that was in 2017, and there were a few other cases again where the tribunal criticised ETS, but then unfortunately the individuals, and it's understandable because they were being cross-examined by experienced Home Office counsel, not Home Office presenting officers, but
Counsel.
QCs, and so it was an unfair fight in some cases because I've been practicing for 22 years now, and I can cross-examine people quite well, and it obviously in a big case with a courtroom full of people, the individuals didn't do as well as they could have done. So everything kind of stayed, and each case progressed one at a time, and it depended upon how good the representative was, how good the advocate was, how tough the judge was. But then this groundswell of anger came up. And it led to the Stephen Timms MP, who's done an excellent job, forming an all-party parliamentary group made up of Conservative MPs, Labour MPs, and they had a session of hearings where they heard evidence from, and this is the most important part, 3 of the experts who'd given evidence in SM, Kadir and the other cases. Mm-hmm. They heard evidence from individuals who'd been wrongly accused of cheating, and I know at least one of them who
just
speaks
asking
English.
one very little question. Did they have any, could they interview anyone from ETS, the All-Party Parliamentary Group? Anyone arrived before them or not? Do you have any information?
No, this is, Mr. Slim, this is the most interesting part of it, is because they wanted to have a fair hearing. The All-Party Parliamentary Group wrote to ETS and they wrote to the Home Office, and both of them declined to come along and give evidence. Right. So the experts gave evidence, individuals gave evidence, lawyers gave evidence, and the Home Office and ETS decided that they weren't going to take part. Mm-hmm. When they concluded the report, they found that ETS was, as one of the experts said, a shambles, that there was no chain of custody, that it was very unfair, that the Home Office had breached their own policies on giving people another chance to do a test, and that essentially 50 or 57,000 people hadn't had a fair crack of the whip. And that was over a year and a half ago, nearly 2 years ago, the report came out.
Yes.
And that shifted everything. And then following that, the National Audit Office gave a report.
So that means the APPA, the All-Party Parliamentary Group, they found that ETS is some sort of, ETS is the main villain in the whole scenario.
Yeah.
Not not directly to the applicant. I mean, in first place, the ETS is the main villain, the examining body.
Yeah, you're 100% right. In all cases, Mr. Slim, there's a villain. It's either the individual or the Home Office, or in this case, it was the All-Party Parliamentary Group found that ETS was the villain. And they uncovered some interesting evidence, which was that the Home Office were considering prosecuting ETS for criminal conduct, and then they settled out of court, having spent £21 million of taxpayers' money investigating it. ETS Holland because it was essentially a shell company set up for the purposes of just selling licenses, paid the Home Office 1.6 million in an out-of-court settlement. So, yes, you're completely right. The villain was ETS. And what was also disturbing was that the Home Office, even before the cases in 2017, had secret meetings where they discussed the fact that the evidence wasn't that good, and could they change the evidence or make it stronger. So they knew they've had problems with their evidence.
The evidential burden on the basis of ASM Kadir, in first place the evidential burden has to be discharged by the Secretary of State, and the evidential burden they used to produce, you all know that is that spreadsheet from ETS stating that these candidates exam and result has been cancelled, or sometimes is questionable. Secondly, couple of witness statements from their own employees.
That's right.
And Professor Finch's report. Those are the common thing. But what you are now saying, that according to the APPG, as ETS is not the proper body, ETS was not operating properly, or even they did not bother to come before APPG. So, I mean, the evidence which were provided by them cannot be admissible before the court. Are you saying, in another word, are you saying something like that?
Yes, I mean, there were two other reports that basically said the same thing, which was the National Audit Office said there were big question marks over the whole conduct, and then the Public Accounts Committee did. Then what happened was, I got permission from Lord Justice Singh in the Court of Appeal, saying you can look at the APPG report, and if you look at it, time's moved on from 2017, and we've now got more evidence that shows that ETS is even less reliable. Now, it's very rare for the Court of Appeal to grant permission on new evidence that wasn't in existence at the time of the appeal. It's very rare. But Lord Justice Singh, in granting permission, said that it was a matter of public importance and it enjoyed good prospects of success. So we were all, and then permission was granted by him, I think, in another case, RK. My case is DK, who I represent. And then there have been a few other grants. I've had grants in another case by another Lord Justice Lewis, saying that there's a problem. So we're all set up for a Court of Appeal hearing. Now, if it goes badly for the Home Office in the Court of Appeal, then they either have to accept it or they have to try to go to the Supreme Court. So all of a sudden, the Home Office, I imagine through their advisors, realised that there was a lot at stake, and obviously people have been removed, people have had to go home, people have lost jobs, people have suffered for over 6 years now in some cases. So they then discovered, and I say discovered because beforehand they said that the first tier decisions were okay. They then discovered that there were errors in the first tier decisions and decided to take it out of the Court of Appeal and put it back into the upper tribunal. Now, I think that's a tactical move, because if they lost in the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal is could be seen as being more impartial, then that would sink the Home Office's entire policy on ETS. It would make Priti Patel look even more stupid, and it would lay the Home Office open to claims of compensation, damages. They would have to bring people back. So I think they thought, if we go to the upper tribunal, we've got a better chance of winning. So that was the first move. The next move was then the Home Office decided to exclude, or try to exclude, the APPG, NAO and PAC reports so that they couldn't be considered. And the matter was set down for a hearing on the 17th of December, which was supposed to last 4 hours. I think it lasted more than that, and it was only a CMR hearing, as you rightly said, a case management review. Now, I went first and was the lead advocate on behalf of that, and we're also joined by Migrant Voice, who've also been allowed to make submissions on paper. Now, the Home Office tried to rely on parliamentary privilege and a law that's over 300 years old. Now, they were successful in respect of the NAO and PAC report. And the reason for that is that they said that evidence given before Parliament shouldn't mean that the person that gives it is open to prosecution outside of Parliament.
Right.
But the APPG report is not covered by that. So there was discussion about whether the APPG report could go in. And I said, well, the evidence given to the APPG report by the experts in 2019 wasn't given to Parliament and doesn't form any part of any parliamentary privilege. The Home Office argued that, well, the courts have already made their conclusions, so it's not fair that some body that's not a court, the APPG report itself and the conclusions, trumps, as it were, or beats the case law. And the tribunal were sympathetic. I raised the point that if somebody has actually not turned up at a hearing and was found incredible, and a year and a half later then said, oh, it's wrong, that the court would laugh at them.
So, in regards to the upcoming hearing, which is listed now for 1st and 2nd of March, if I just ask you if you could answer me in one single sentence that what the tribunal is going to, what is the issue to resolve in that hearing, what you are going to, what is your standpoint, and what the court is going to resolve.
I'll do that as quickly as I can. The good news is that the court are going to only consider whether the Home Office can still justify SM Kadir, whether they can still justify their initial proving that there was some evidence of dishonesty. So it's not going to be a case where the individuals are cross-examined. So it won't be a case where the court could say that they don't believe ETS, but equally they don't believe the appellants, and so it remains the same. Cases are on each basis. So in one sentence, the Home Office has got to justify whether they can still rely on anything from ETS.
Yes.
And we're arguing that the old evidence, the case of MA, or I am arguing, and the evidence given to the APPG report says that whereas before the Home Office won by a narrow margin, we're arguing that margin is now overturned, and if we're successful, that will mean that there is no case to answer for the individuals that have wrongly been accused of cheating, because we will have established that you can't rely on anything from ETS, and that's the main argument. And if we win on that, then the Home Office haven't got any other evidence to show that the person's cheated. And so that's going to be where myself, the other barrister representing RK, and where the written submissions of the of Migrant Voice are going to come in. And the good thing is, as I've mentioned, is that the hearing is limited to that one single question, which is whether or not the Home Office have established even the prima facie case of cheating.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turner, for this information. And we are now about to go to a break, but I'm requesting my technical team to extend the time for about 5 minutes so we can finish with Mr. Turner properly. We got another topic to discuss, but very briefly, that is about Pathan. What is it all about? If you could give us some very brief idea within a minute or two, please.
Pathan is the equivalent of Patel. In Patel, it was held that if you were a Tier 4 student and your school lost its licence, you would be given permission to stay. In Pathan, which involved Tier 2 workers, the law has always been that if the Tier 2 sponsor loses its licence, the person loses and they don't have a chance to find a new sponsor. And what the Supreme Court found in Patan was that that was procedurally unfair, because you might be working for somebody for 4 years and 11 months, and you might not know that your sponsor is being investigated, and then you might get a curtailment letter 1 month before you qualify for ILR, and that's it, you're finished. And or you might submit a genuine certificate of sponsorship, and then without you knowing, the Home Office then cancel it, but they don't tell you that they're planning to cancel it. And so it was found, Patan was a case where the court found that it was procedurally unfair not to let people know that there was an issue with their sponsor. So that basically they were denied the opportunity of finding a new sponsor or switching into a new route. So it really opens the door for people that have been refused in the past without any notice, and it also opens the door to a lot of people in that situation, because obviously some employers might have shared the information and people might have found a new employer, but in Patan's case he had no knowledge of the investigation and no knowledge that the Home Office were going to take the licence away until he got the refusal letter. And obviously, it being the PBS, he didn't have a right of appeal, and so therefore he was stuck. It was 5 judges in the Supreme Court. They found that it was procedurally unfair. What's unusual is 2 said that people should be given another period of leave so that they could find another sponsor, and another 2 judges found that it was that the Home Office behaviour was illegal, but they didn't say that people should be given an additional period of time, and the last judge kind of went along with them but didn't come out as heavily. So you ended up where you've got 2 judges that say people should be given leave, and the Home Office have acted procedurally unfairly, and then you have another 2 that agreed that there was procedural unfairness, but didn't say that people should be given extra period of leave. So basically it squashes the Home Office decision. Now that means that if the decision is squashed, then really the application would then become outstanding and somebody could swap into a different category or could find a new Tier 2 sponsor. As to what's going to happen in the future, there's an awful lot of people that have been the victim of procedural unfairness, and my advice to them would be that if you had an application refused because the Home Office sat on it, then revoked your sponsor, or you just had your visa curtailed, that you should be getting in touch with your lawyer to make an application for either a period of leave or the opportunity of finding a new sponsor and relying on Patan.
So that means the applicant will be given a notification, will be given a chance to make any sorts of further action or application, whatever they want to make. The applicant will be given that sort of opportunity. My very small question to you, that if someone's got that sort of scenario 2 years before and after that he has been suffering, can he bring that that issue once again now, relying on Patan?
Yes, and the reason for that is that I would suggest that they use their lawyers to write to the Home Office first and ask for a period of leave, and then potentially a judicial review application if they didn't want to make a human rights application. Now, why is a strange thing of English law, which is the Supreme Court doesn't make law, it discovers the law. So it's discovered that the Home Office has been acting unlawfully for years. So the consequences are, for people that have been refused in the past or have suffered in the past, is that previous decision is unlawful, and that's the the effect, as I say, of English law, which is to, or that the court finds the law, discovers the law, interprets
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of English law. That means they still have some sort of hope. So they should seek proper legal advice from an expert, barrister, lawyer, solicitor, whatever the expert immigration practitioners. So thank you very, very much indeed, Mr. Paul Turner. Thank you very much for appearing in my show. And what I also wanted to tell you, that you have been serving the migrants, you are fighting for the migrants since your whole career, and you have been, I expect that you would be doing it for future as well. So from the whole community, from the whole Bengali community, as a leading TV channel, from this channel, we want to thank you for giving your service, for fighting for many of us. So we look forward to seeing you in future as well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salim. If I could say so myself, it's been my privilege to actually represent a number of people that have been wrongly treated. And so I feel as fortunate in that regard, and I'm happy to help.
And before you go, Jess, I want to take one word from you, as I know that you have been very, very vocal for the undocumented people, and you are raising some sort of voice to have some amnesty for them. So I ask you, will you attend in my show in future to discuss about that amnesty and undocumented people's issue?
I'd love to attend, Mr. Salim.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm going to tell my viewers that Mr. Turner will appear very soon, sometimes after a few weeks or so, when you get a spare time, to discuss about the remedy for the undocumented people, or potential remedy for them. Thank you very much once again for appearing in my show. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Salim.
Thank you.
Take care.
সুপ্রিয় দর্শক মণ্ডলী, এই ছিল আমার সাথে মিস্টার পল টার্নারের ডিসকাশন। আমাকে এখনই একটা ব্রেকে যাওয়া লাগবে। ব্রেক থেকে ফিরে এসে তার সাথে কি ডিসকাশন হলো বাংলা আমি একটু সামারাইজ করে তারপর আবার ফোন নেওয়া শুরু করব। সবাই ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত আমার সঙ্গেই থাকুন। ধন্যবাদ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।